This is Sagar, and myself, I have a decade years of experience in enterprise domain. Prior to this, and I also work as a big data developer and also as an Hadoop architect. And along with this, I also mostly in the Java related technologies and ORM and the Spring for a larger section of the period. I'll make sure that for next 1 hour we are going to have a very interesting discussion about what Hibernate does in the market today and what is the impact of understanding Hibernate and how it's going to help us in your career better and how easily persistence is handled, right? So that's what the target of the most of the industry today. So they need to understand how effectively a persistence can be handled very much easily, right? And so this particular webinar is coming you from Edureka. I think most of you will be aware of what Edureka is all about. If you not, Edureka is basically one of the global online leading training providers in the globe today, and we have a high success rate in training because primarily we provide a 24/7 support for all the online training solutions, and we have the most wide variety of courses. So objectives of today's webinar is basically going to understand the following things. So understanding what is a Java enterprise and why Hibernate and how Hibernate is easily can be done with Java and how can we do an easy persistence with Hibernate, and also stepping into something with Spring and the sessions and transactions. And obviously the final topic is understanding Hibernate with search mechanism. Okay, so these are the topics we are going to discuss today. So let's go into the webinar now. So as you all aware, the primary technology which is dominating the market today is Java Enterprise Edition, right? So any single application, so for an example, when you host a web application or when you host an enterprise application like a banking solution or prior to this or any particular application, basically runs on top of the Java Enterprise domain today, right? Right from the ORM, or it may be a big data, even Hadoop is built on top of Java, or it may be any technology. If you see, it's very rarely a technology will come without Java actually. So it's a rare scenario to see. Yes, there are some technologies like Scala and Spark, etc., all coming with a language called Scala. But again, one has to understand Scala itself is again built on top of your JVM only. So most of the things will revolve around the Java Enterprise Edition. Most of the ORM solutions, most of the big data solutions, if you come back and see, Java plays a very major role. So the primary intention of putting this slide is to make sure that we are going to focus the examples towards the Java language, and also how Hibernate can be used effectively with ORM technologies with Java language, etc. So coming back to Hibernate. So Hibernate is one of the object-relational persistence mapping which has been founded by Gavin King in 2001. So basically what Hibernate is trying to provide. So what Hibernate is trying to provide is that it's trying to provide one common solution for all the databases. So for instance, I need to develop a particular application, and I spend a lot of time to develop this particular application. So for instance, let me open up the Glyphy. I'll get a better picture. Okay, so meanwhile when it opens, I just okay, it got open. So nice. So this is one of my favorite tools which I use a lot for representing diagrammatic architecture. All the very good tool to use. So what Hibernate is trying to do, so what happens as a set of developers, right? So when we develop a particular environment, right? So let's say I have a development environment which has been developed to work with a particular database. Let's say this is a MySQL database. Now my organization decided, okay, MySQL is not scaling anymore, so let's come and use something on Oracle. So let's go back and understand what Oracle is all about. So that can help us in understanding things better. So what happens? I have another set of team who starts working for Oracle. So this is primarily one of the challenges, right? For each and every database, I come up with a separate set of teams and start coming with a new set of code, which is primarily delaying the work which I'm going to do and also delaying the complete task, and most importantly, it is ending up in a repeatable code, right? And keep on rewriting the same code again and again and again. So what is the solution for this? So in order to solve this problem, so what Hibernate stepped up, what Hibernate tried to say is that you don't have multiple development environments. You can have only one development environment. Okay, so you can have only one development environment. So we never bother about it. And here comes the person called as Hibernate. So what is basically trying to say is that you can use an layer called as Hibernate in between the code which you write. So what you are going to do, you are going to write only one common set of code. Either it may be MySQL or Oracle or any other database. You can put a MySQL or Oracle or a DB2. You can primarily involve any database in the globe. It's not one or two. You can involve any database. So this guy takes care of converting or translating into the way how the database understands. So you end up writing only one layer of the code, which in turn is getting converted or taken care of by Hibernate as per the database standards, as per how MySQL has to understand, as per how Oracle has to understand, as per how DB2 has to understand. So that's the primary reason of having a technology called as an Hibernate, so which makes life a lot easier. So you start writing a code which is, instead of database specific, becoming a database independent. So you start writing a code which is now totally not dependent on the database. Instead, it's writing only one common code. So if you look back into a diagram, you can very clearly understand the primary intention of having a technology called Hibernate is, so you can have only one common code, and irrespective of any database, it's going to work. Either it may be Oracle or it may be MySQL, it may be Derby, it can go to any extent. Okay, so that's the primary intention of coming up with a layer called as Hibernate. Remove the database and replace with another database. If Oracle is going for a longer period of time, you can just knock off Oracle, come up with MySQL. If MySQL is going for a longer period of time, you can just lock off MySQL and you can come up with another database. So how it does this? How it is having the capacity to do this? However, one code can be converted into multiple sections of the codes. Right? That was a question rises. So what Hibernate comes up with is actually a technical solution called as ORM, object-relational mapping. So what Hibernate says, so if you have, so basically what you do, you are basically, if you have a class or a Java class called an employee class, and if you have an employee table, so what Hibernate is trying to say is, so far all the technologies worked on the database side. Now let's take a reverse approach. What are the actions you are going to do with this? What are the actions you are going to do with this? You can do any level of actions. What are the actions you are going to do on the employee Java class is going to get reflected into the table. Okay, so by doing this, what happened? You always act only on the Java class, not on the table. This will in turn automatically affect the employee table. So for an instance, what we are trying to say is that if you are trying to create an object of an employee class, you're just trying to say employee E equal to new of employee. So then what basically happens is that, so this particular thing basically inserts whenever you create an object. So this is actually pointing to a row in table. So that's how it's going to happen. So whatever you are going to do as part of the class, that internally is going to affect the elements of the table. So internally, so what technically Hibernate says, you keep on going to work on the Java class only, and that guy is going to take care of speaking with the database table. So by doing this, what happens, irrespective of whatever may be the table, it may be an It may be Oracle, it may be MySQL, irrespective of any database it may be. So only one thing you have to understand, you are always going to work on a particular employee class, not on the employee table. So this is called as an ORM, object relational mapping, which technically, what it does technically is that any relations you're trying to do with the corresponding Java instances, they are going to get affected in your tables. So that makes Hibernate a special technology. Okay. So is such question from Sachin. I just take on Sachin. Why the Hibernate is divided into layer or tier? There's no such. It's divided into separate layer or tier, Sachin. So what Hibernate is trying to say is, see, when I show you the example, you will understand. You are just going to work on your particular Java class only, and that guy is going to take care of reflecting into the database. It won't add a separate layer on top of it. Fine, Sachin. It's just telling provide a Java class, and I'm going to work on top of the Java class whatever you're going to provide. So when we see the demo now, you'll get a better picture. So now we're just going to see the demo of whatever we discussed. So is everybody understanding how Hibernate is able to achieve the database independence? Because it works on the code, not on the tables. We work on the entity class over there. Yes, exactly, Naman. Yeah, we are going to work on the entity class. We are not going to work on the table, we are going to work on the entity class. So let's we have an EJB, so we need Hibernate. So the problem of why we need Hibernate still we have EJB is the primary reason is EJB is not that much easier to use. EJB requires an application container server. EJB requires a heavy components container, etc. Whereas Hibernate is a very simple mechanism, can be used with a very lightweight server also. Where for an example, EJB cannot be used with Tomcat server. EJB requires a very heavy application servers to use, like WebLogic, etc. Whereas an Hibernate can work on very, very lightweight mechanisms. That's the primary reason EJB is not preferred. That's why Hibernate is heavily preferred. Okay, fine, Sachin. So Aryan says microphone is muted. You can type your questions, Mike. Aryan, I'll reply to that. So that's the primary reason, Sachin. We won't use EJB in this kind of sections because everybody can't afford a very strong application server because they are costlier to use. Whereas Hibernate can work on a very less weight Tomcat server, where EJB cannot work on the same. So going back to an example, so just I'm going to show you an example of an operation of Hibernate, right? So let me close this. So when you look at this particular example, what Hibernate is going to do first is, so we have a corresponding entity class called branch class. So if you look at this branch class, so Hibernate provides some annotations. So because as we said, it's going to work on the class, not on the tables. So this particular class, what it says, this says I have a table name equal to branch. So what it says automatically, when you're going to work with this particular class, this class is now getting mapped to the branch table. Okay, this is directly getting mapped to the branch table. And so now what happens is that it's having a particular branch ID. And so again, so whatever the things has been mentioned as part of the name here, so branch ID, branch name, and branch status. So these guys are literally pointing to the columns of the table. So what basically going to happen now is there is a table called as branch, and that particular table is going to have 3 columns called as branch ID, branch name, and branch status. Okay, as simple as that. So that's what Hibernate is trying to do. First thing, this is called ORM matching. Okay. So question from Aryan, how does Hibernate determine the syntax of the query? So it never, that's what Hibernate tries to do. So an SQL which is common to all the databases will be executed. So for an instance, what I'm trying to say, if you go to Oracle, you might have specific SQL syntaxes which can work only with Oracle. So it won't do that. It will take the standard SQL. It won't add any specific things which Oracle supports or which MySQL supports, etc. Not kind of things. So all the database must support standard SQL. So it's going to do on the standard SQL. So that's what it's going to do. Fine, Aryan? All the databases must support some version of SQL. So that SQL will be taken. So each and every database will come up with their own future. It won't use that. For example, Oracle is having SQL plus, etc. All the things. So for example, a select star from employee will work in all the databases. So if it is going to work in all the databases, it's going to follow only that particular syntax. Okay, fine, Arun? Does that answer your question? Ant entity is for is add entity is just says okay, this is the class which should be considered for all the persistence. That's what add entity says. There are cases where syntax is specific to DB. In that case, how Hibernate comes up with it. It's having native APIs. If you want to do it, it's having native support APIs. You can still go and use it, but then you have to take care of a lot of things. It supports native SQL where you can copy the native SQL and execute it. Okay, that's the thing. Yeah, fine. So you have to come up with the native tools. Yeah. But we won't prefer it because the way if you develop something like that, in fact within a database itself we are going to have problem. For example, the version supported from Oracle 9 might not support in Oracle 10. Right. So all those things also you have to consider. That's why tools like Hibernate stepped up. They will take care of all these things. If the more you go into develop a code which is having a dependency on the database, it's definitely we are not going to scale up. So that is something which is really guaranteed. Okay, so let's go and can specific syntaxes can be executed by SQL. That's what the answer I gave, Naman. So you can always execute the native SQL too in Hibernate. Hibernate supports native SQL. You can just copy paste the native SQL and start executing. Okay, you can execute a native SQL. Yeah. So here comes Hibernate now. So you can see what Hibernate basically does is that, so it just takes the option from the user whether you have to create, update or delete. So what it basically does, it tries to create a branch. So now what Hibernate's one of the main advantage of using a tools like Hibernate is that you don't want to write any database code. It takes responsibility of opening the connection and making a session and transaction, etc. All those kind of things. That's the beauty of using a technology such as called as Hibernate, where you basically won't make any database code by yourself. You just keep writing. For example, if you want to write the same code in JDBC, you have to write a lot of Java statements. Create connection, create statement, create result set, get the answer, go over the connection, etc. One has to do a lot of things. You have to do a lot of things. Okay, so that's what basically happens. So what Hibernate does is that it just completely wraps up everything. It provides a very easy layer like get session, get transaction, and start working on. Apart from that, all it is going to say is that it's going to work on top of the object. So for example, branch equal to new of branch. So branch dot set branch name branch statement. All you have to say is that save branch. So now what happens the moment I'm going to execute this particular operation. So let me create a database and drop the database so that we can start from the scratch. So I'm going to drop the database. So let's have a very fresh database. Okay, spelling mistake, sorry. And we are going to create a database. So use the particular database. So it's having no tables, it's empty tables. You can see absolutely no tables is available. So all I'm going to execute this particular operation. See what Hibernate is going to do. So let's say run as Java application. So it's asking an option for you to do. So I'm just having an option. So I'm just telling create, enter. So it's asking enter the ID. So 1, enter the branch name, test, enter the batch status, true. So it does a sort of thing. So it smartly executed the insert statement, insert into branch table. It just takes the normal SQL which can be executed, right? Okay, so here basically what happened, the first important thing one has to understand, I have not written any query, I have not written any statement object, I have not written any database object, absolutely I have not even written a single SQL statement. I used a basic Java code like branch equal to new of branch, set branch ID, branch name and branch status, save of branch. This is a normal Java code. A Java code of creating an object. There is no way a single SQL statement has been used. There is no way a single JDBC code has been used. I have not used an update statement, update, callable, result set, nothing has been used. A plain Java code, a very basic Java code has been used where anybody can use it and it started processing it. Right? It's absolutely not even a single statement used. Anybody can easily write this code. Okay? So no need to use like the same thing in JDBC. It's going to be very complex. I need to write some level of code. I have to write a create statement and I have to get the result set object. I have to do this. I have to get const statement. I have to close everything. I have to make a connection that close, statement that close. In order to write a particular query, I end up writing 8 or 9 extra lines, which is totally very difficult to even follow. So that's what basically happens in the case of our Hibernate, right? It just, if all of a sudden, if you look back, this is a Java code. And nothing special happened. I just created an object and I told save the object. This cannot be done in any technology, right? You can't do it. In JDBC, you can't do this. JDBC says you have to write the query for yourself. First of all, you have to hard code the query. That itself a pain. You have to hard code the query by yourself and you have to do a lot of other things, right? You can't directly work with the instances in the case of our JDBC kind of thing. So if you go back and look back into the database table, so now we say show tables, it has created a table. First thing, it has created a table. I have not even mentioned a create table statement. It went on, understood the class, it created the table. First thing, no even a single query executed for creating the table. I just told which is a database, it went ahead, it only created a statement, it created a table statement, it inserted the data, it does everything, right? So I say select star from branch, it signed the data. Smart, right? So that's how basically Hibernate is all about. But the same thing can be done by using update result set in JDBC. You can't use the instances there, Sanjay. You can't use the Java instances directly there, right? Here it's like a normal Java instance. So if we are using concept like eager loading or lazy loading, we are using lazy loading so that its performance will be extremely faster. Okay, fine, Sachin. In this example, we are using just one transaction to insert. Is it required to roll back the transaction if it fails all the transaction occurs? Okay, you have to revert back the transaction, but I'm going to provide a solution for that, Shiva, very shortly now. I'm going to provide a solution for you. What is a better way of doing this? I'm just going to provide an absolute solution for what is another better way of doing this. Okay. So far is this clear for everybody? You're all getting an understanding of what's happened so far? Any of your questions is not answered? Quick yes, no from everybody. What is transaction? Transaction is the one which has to be used with database for making any statements as such. Without transaction, you can't insert the data, you can't delete the data. Okay, yeah. So Sanjay Sharma, is your question answered? Okay, so now there was a question. Now there is one question everybody can ask is that okay, still I am watching something in Hibernate like you are opening the session and you are closing the transaction, right? And still you use all those kind of things. Can I even avoid that too? And I just basically don't want to do anything at all. I just want to avoid the complete thing, right? So I just want to completely avoid it. So that's where basically your Spring with Hibernate comes up in the picture. So when you look with Spring with Hibernate, the same operation what we do here, the same thing. Let's go to the save branch. Now you see, look back to this particular code. What Spring has done is, Spring provides a session called Hibernate template. it says use only one line called as Hibernate template.save branch. So what are the things it is doing now? Spring, what it does basically now, it opens the connection, opens the session, saves the transaction, queries against the database, inserts into branch value, commits transaction, close the session, close the connection, everything it has done, and only one line you are going to write called as Hibernate template.save branch. If any failure comes, it is going to revert back the transaction. It's going to handle every single kind of element to you. All it says is that use my class called as Hibernate template when you use the particular operation. Okay, so question answer, Shiva? Okay, that's the beauty of using a technology called as string. Okay. So Spring as an API which is having lot of, that is the advantage of using something called, okay, Hibernate templates used to be a private variable. Yes, fine, because I'm using within the class, right? So I'm not using it. Yeah, that's the advantage of Spring. Spring initializing. So I'll show you how Spring initializes. I'll just show you the Spring file. So Spring is a technology. Basically, what it does is that, so when you join the course, we'll explain in detail. So what the advantage of using something called Spring is that you can define everything in the property file. So for an example, if you want an Hibernate template, Spring works on the concept of beans. So it says whenever the user is using an object called as an Hibernate template, you have to instantiate with this class. So that's what Spring does. So that is the advantage of using something called Spring. So Spring basically defines everything on its XML file. It says when the user wants to use the transaction manager, provide him what has been defined here. When the user wants to connect to the database, provide him all the database required username and password. So every single thing on load, Spring loads a particular XML file and get the things exactly ready for you. So when you're using that particular class, all you have to do is that use that object and start working on. You don't need to worry about rest of any of the things. Okay. So then for each class, we need to use Hibernate template manager. Then does it become a boilerplate code? You don't want to create any instances. All you have to do is that extend a particular class and you can say get Hibernate template from that. Darshan. It's not a boilerplate code, right? You can extend a particular class and that class can have the Hibernate template. Fine, Darshan? So you can have only one class and extend that class and have it, okay? I've used the JDBC driver. How can we make it a generic to use the default driver? No, Shiva, that's not possible because you have to use the specific Java drivers. For MySQL, you have to use the MySQL driver. For Oracle, you have to use the Oracle driver. If that is impossible to do. You have to specify which driver you are going to use. So for instance, if you see this particular lib, you might see the corresponding JDBC driver will be provided because each and every database only will provide that drivers. You can see the MySQL connected driver. Okay, that's not possible. You have to provide the driver and you can provide the particular URL you are loading. That much Spring will take care, but driver jar you have to provide to Spring in any case. Okay. Yeah. So this is the advantage of the complete contrast between the example which we see and the example which we see now, right? So difference between the example what we seen and what we are doing now is that only one primary difference is Spring now steps up one more level of abstraction and tells even to the Hibernate itself, don't need to write a single piece of code. I will take care of presenting all the codes. So all one has to do is just use only one line called as Hibernate template.save or Hibernate template.delete. See here. Okay. Hibernate, all is only one line you have to use. So that is the beauty of, so when you join the course, we will be discussing an in-depth detail of what Spring does. Okay, what happens in the beans.xml and what basically Spring does. So that's what we'll be discussing. We have actually separate session for Spring itself. We'll be explaining what Spring and why we need Spring and all the things. Okay, fine. So we'll be doing all those single things, man. Okay. If I want two different sessions, how do I achieve it? Okay, so basically when you want two different sessions, so Spring, technically you can load any number of sessions. So just a minute, everybody. So technically, one can get any number of sessions, Sunil. So what all you have to tell is only one thing. So whenever you want a particular session, so all you have to say is that Hibernate template is again can give you the session. Just for showing an example, you can say Hibernate template dot get session factory dot get session. You can basically get the session whenever you want. You can see here. So it basically gives whenever you want the session. It never stops you actually. Okay. So then you can have two different Hibernate templates. One template with one database connection, another template with another database connection. Fine, Sunil? So this kind of things. So how to kind of, we'll be discussing a lot when your course comes up, right? So we'll be discussing a lot of things. So that's what the advantage of using Spring over Hibernate. So we are almost at the end. So I'm going to discuss one of the most unique features. So I am going to explain a new thing which has come up in Hibernate, something called a search mechanism. So Lucene is basically one of the most widely used full text search engines. So when I say full text search engine, so what I'm basically trying to say is that, so Lucene is one of the most widely used search engine mechanisms in the world. Whenever you want to search a particular thing in a particular text file, or whenever you want to find a particular string in a document, you will use the Lucene API generally. So that's the advantage of using Lucene API. So Hibernate taught a lot. So then they decided how to make the things extremely faster. How can you make a thing extremely faster while? So when the user is coming back and telling select star from employee where age equal to 1, or select star from employee whose salaries are greater than 50,000, or select star from employee whose last name ends with John. So when something comes like that, right, you basically go and search against the database. So Hibernate thought, instead of going as a normal database concept, why can't I do a search operation against the database, right? So do you think finding is going to be faster or searching is going to be faster? Which is going to be faster? Two ways, right? Find and search. You're finding a particular element, but you're going to provide a search on top of it to provide a particular element. So then they realized, why can't we do search on top of the database? So then they came across Lucene. They found Lucene is one of the most interesting architecture. So then they realized, let's introduce a concept called as Hibernate search. So what we are basically trying to do now is that we will use Lucene, okay, as part of the Hibernate API. We use Lucene as part of the Hibernate API. Instead of user finding a particular element, now the user is going to search a particular element, which is going to make the things extremely faster. Okay, so Lucene became a part of Hibernate from Hibernate 4.0. Hibernate started using Lucene, so Lucene is now a part of your Hibernate. Lucene is now part of Hibernate, where you can provide effective searching operations. So now what happens? So when I show a particular example, so I'm just going to show you how beautiful searching is going to work. So when you have a particular data handler, so let's see what I'm basically going to do is that let me open up the database and make sure the database is already existing. So show databases, just want to create database. Okay, use search, fine. So show tables. Now let's say select star from branch. Now it's having some 4 data. Now instead of making a find query, I am basically going to provide a search query. So what I'm basically going to do, I am basically going to index everything, because a search engine can work only on index. Okay, so the do index is a method which basically provides indexing with the help of your Lucene API. You can see I'm using the Lucene API to do indexing. You all know indexing is going to make the life fast, easier, and indexing is one of the technologies which is very widely used, right, in order to achieve a faster performance. All the search engine mechanisms in the world is going to work on indexing. So I'm going to perform indexing on all the columns. Fine. So it basically provided the indexing on each and everything. So now, instead of going and finding when the user says select not from employee where salary is greater than 10,000 etc. Instead like that, it is going to provide a search on top of that because it made an index on all the columns. It knows instead of searching the column with a name called employee age, it is going to do an index and find what is there in the particular column. Okay, so now because you provided an index, now I'm not going to do a find, I'm going to do a search. So if you see here, I'm going to show you the API how the search works. So I'm basically using the complete Lucene API, which will be again explained as part of your course. So what basically happens is that I'm using Lucene is having a concept called as build a query and fire the query against a particular document. So here I'm building a query and I am firing the query called as find everything which is matched, which is having the word called test2 from the entity called branches, means from the table called branches. And I'm getting the search results. So it is a completely faster operation compared to other things. So now when I run this particular operation called search branch, it is instead of firing a query, it's going to do a search operation. For a change, it's going to do a search operation. So you say run as Java application. So it's going to be extremely faster. See, it will just fly like this, it will bring the result. Because it has done a proper indexing and it is doing the search index operation instead of doing a query kind of operation. So you will be studying a lot of Lucene, etc. all the things, okay. And prior to this, we are also introducing a concept called as OGM, which says the NoSQL with Hibernate, and you'll be watching even that. Okay. So these are some of the main features which we covered today. So any questions on all these things, anybody? You found this interesting? I feel indexing on top already indexed table as Hibernate does. No, Shiva, that's why it's using an algorithm called Lucene, right? We are using an algorithm called Lucene, which is one of the highly popular indexing algorithms. So it is going to index in a different way. It's not going to do an indexing on the table. Okay, getting it right? The concept is different here. They are going to use a completely different concept. But the tables are already indexed. See, that's what the table index to make a find query. But here I am talking about search mechanism. I'm not talking about find query. I'm doing a search kind of operation. Searching is different and finding is different. Here I'm using a Lucene API to do a search operation, not a find operation. So when I go to Google, if I say Hibernate, so this is a search operation. This is not a find operation. How this is faster? Because we have APIs such as well as Lucene, etc. So they work in a different approach. They create separate set of indexes which helps them to do a search operation on top of them, which makes the things extremely faster. Okay, that's why Hibernate came up with this concept. Okay, so search is going to make it extremely faster compared to find, because the Lucene API has been specifically used to use this, right? It has been specifically come to a great direction. In fact, when you look at the Hibernate, right, one of the most critical things what they introduced is something called as an Hibernate search. The latest version, they targeted this very much effectively. They are now telling you how to use Hibernate search to a great direction. So all these things which has been mentioned here, right, the ORM search, validator, OGM, every single thing is discussed in detail in the classes. Why it is faster, how it is faster, etc. all the things. So regarding the course and the rest of the details, I like you all to contact support. So this is what basically we are going to cover at the full-fledged course. I'll just go over the course details. So basically we'll be covering by giving an introduction to ORM and Hibernate, explaining each and every attributes and every details of the components of Hibernate. Then we come across explaining what basically persistence and session factory is all about. Then going into the API details of Hibernate and criteria. Then in module 5 we'll touch the transactions and filter, and module 6 is where the search and validation comes up with the Lucene and etc. 7 is a completely new thing which you might have not seen anywhere before, like the OGM NoSQL, and also you'll get also a project at the end which you have to submit and take care of it. Okay. Yeah, so then fine everybody, I hope you had a very good session. So please have in touch with the support team for the rest of the questions. They will take care. They'll also send you the corresponding program and whatever we discussed part of the class and also the slides. And for rest of the things, contact support. Please try to join the course, and it's a very interesting course on Hibernate. You will be having very nice time in understanding the persistence and ORM, all the other things. And please contact support for rest of the things. As I already mentioned, support email ID. Okay, you can always contact support by the email ID which I mentioned here, and also you can go back to the Edureka website to see the support number. Okay, you can always contact the support like that. Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much. Then please contact the support. Please fill the feedback at the end of the session, and I hope I'll see you all in the Hibernate course.